Hello and welcome to another edition of Big Apple Hockey, clapping bombs with L-Rock. Marc is not with us as he has work, and as you guys know, Phil, I believe, is on a new work schedule, so it'll just be me for tonight. Just had a little bit of time here. Just wanted to talk to you guys about some of the news that came down today with the New York Islanders finally announcing some of their RFA signings, which a lot of us kind of knew was in the draw, but Lou today made him official with the re-signing of RFA Noah Dobson to a 3-year contract, Alexander Romanov to a 3-year contract, and Kieffer Bellows to a 1-year contract. So before we get into some of your comments, which I'll definitely go through, and what Lou's tenure and should he go, should he stay? I made a big long post about him on all things Islanders. Of course, the homers and the Kool-Aid drinkers, kind of sit there and say you don't know anything, but for how daring going against Lou. So I'll get on that topic, and then just overall what the outlook for next season. So first, again, we'll start with the re-signings. As I mentioned, they signed the 3 RFAs, Noah Dobson to a 3-year, $4 million term, Alexander Romanov to a 3-year, $2.5 million term, and Kieffer Bellows to a 1-year, $1.2 million term, AAV, I should say. So I'll start there. First things first, the Noah Dobson contract, and I'll be fair. I'm very critical of Lou, but I'll also give him his due where he deserves it. And the Dobson contract is mastery. It's a really good deal. You're talking about a future top pairing defenseman, very young, who just put up 50 points. So to get him at $4 million AAV, and also when it expires, he's still going to have RFA status. That is a great contract for Lou and great value, because if Noah Dobson keeps on this trajectory and becomes this, elite defenseman, which a lot of people think he can be for the next 3 years, he's going to be making $4 million, where, those type of defenders make, $7-8 million. So good on him to get Dobson signed to that contract. Alexander Romanov. Romanov 2.5, again, pretty good value. Alexander Romanov, as you all know, they acquired at the draft from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for their first-round selection. Romanov's 22 years old, left pairing defenseman. Will play on the second pair along with Noah Dobson. Certainly brings a physical edge to his game, as he's not afraid to throw the body. He can above average NHL skating ability, and the only thing with him is, his offensive game hasn't developed yet. Hopefully, there's room for growth there. But definitely a good signing, and I'm looking forward to see what Romanov can bring an Islander uniform. Which, speaking of Romanov, if you guys don't, give him a follow on Instagram. He should be posting an Instagram story tomorrow promoting our channel. So Marc and I and Phil are very excited about that. So definitely follow him. And the last signing, Kieffer Bellows, 1 year, $1.2 million. And listen, we all know Bellows. He has the family name. He was a first-round pick back in 2016. Hasn't really developed like the Islanders thought he could. He possesses a good wrist shot and a good release, but overall, his game kind of leaves a lot to be desired. He did show some flashes of, maybe he could be that middle six player last year. But again, I'm not really. I don't really have high expectations for him. I think at 1.2 million, a little bit of an overpay. I mean, I really think he should have been at a little over $900,000, maybe $1 million tops. But it is what it is. 1.2. It's 1 year. It's not going to kill him. And he'll probably be fighting for ice time really with Oliver Wahlstrom. I mean, the only other guy conceivably he could play over in the lineup is Zach Parise, but I would, advise strongly against that, as Parise scored 15 goals, and he's a hound on the puck, and for a guy who makes $750K playing on the third line, he's a guy you want in the lineup. So we'll see where Bellows fits. But those are the 3 signings today that he finally announced. And in his, presser, he spoke at 1:00, and he basically said that, the team that they have right now is going to be the team that hits the ice. He said that sometimes the best transactions are the ones you don't make, kind of in all that fluff. So, that he's very confident in the team and he's looking to prove some people wrong. So, and again, I mean, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I'm sure you guys know GMs in sports, say things all the time, or they're not going to move a certain player, and then eventually they make a move and whatnot. So, I would be very surprised if he did make a move. While it's still possible based on what he said, I do not think that he will add anything more to this team. So, again, I think so. What you see is what you get here. And now, kind of when you go into a little bit about Lou, I posted a post on All Things Islanders the other day about my feelings on Lou and his tenure. And I think a lot of Islander fans get so offended, and I'm clearly an Islander fan. You guys know this, but a lot of Islander fans, like I said at the start of the show, you can't. God forbid you say anything against Lou. They'll sit there and chastise you to to the end of the world. But me personally, I call it like it is. Lou Lamoriello, largely in part, has inherited a team that's 85% built by Garth Snow. So the only guys on the roster that are playing on a Garth Snow handed out contract are Josh Bailey and Scott Mayfield. Those are two left. And as far as players that Lou acquired that are on the roster, Semyon Varlamov, Kyle Palmieri, and Jean-Gabriel Pageau. If you want, you could count Noah Dobson, Oliver Wahlstrom, but that was the first year that Lou was here. The draft process at that point, it was hard, was already done. I mean, Garth Snow was at that draft table that year when they were selected in Dallas. Phil and I were actually there covering that draft. But so technically, really, you could say that even Dobson and Wahlstrom are Garth Snow acquisitions and picks. But so I made that point about how it's largely a Snow roster, and Lou still really hasn't put his stamp on the team to really push them over the edge and take them into that next tier of being a legit contender year after year. And again, you get a lot of pushback. Oh, they say, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about," because again, God forbid you criticize Lou. But at the end of the day, I call it like I see it. And Lou Lamoriello, listen, guys, I think most Islander fans can admit we're very grateful for. Obviously, he came in and he changed the culture. He definitely got rid of the Mickey Mouse type of or Mickey Mouse Club organization, that country club feel that Garth Snow was running. He came in and he's demanded respect. He's changed the culture. He brought in Barry Trotz. None of that, you can't take any of that away from him. And I think Islander fans are all grateful for that. So it's not like we're saying, Lou Lamoriello hasn't done anything. But short of that, and as far as on ice product related stuff, yes, he convinced Ilya Sorokin to come over because Sorokin saw how Garth Snow was running the organization, and he re-signed in CSKA in Moscow for 2 years. And that was terrible because again, the rumors were he didn't want to play for a Garth Snow led organization because it was, let's face it, it was Mickey Mouse. And yeah, at Christie, I remember that tweet. It was Dreger reported that Sorokin had been dealt to the Blackhawks, and I think all Islander fans were just absolutely gut-wrenched, and I'm glad that didn't happen. But yeah, so Lou bringing over Ilya Sorokin, his value contracts to Ryan Pulock and Adam Pelech, and now I guess you can add Noah Dobson to that list. But other than that, again, call it like I see it. He hasn't done what it's taken to move the Islanders to the next level. And then you'll get people saying, "Oh, well, they made back-to-back conference finals and all this." And again, yes, they did. But you got to remember, in 1920, when COVID, ravaged the world, I should say, and everything shut down, the Islanders were out of the playoff spot, but by virtue of games played and points percentage, they technically weren't eighth. But for NHL standards, at the pause, they were ninth, and they were on a losing streak. So you don't know what would have happened. Adam Pelech, at that point, had his Achilles torn. He was out for the rest of the year. So you could say, if not for COVID and the pause, maybe the Islanders don't have that success. And then the following year was a 56-game season. When they lost to Tampa in 7 games, and that they only play teams in their division. Again, it wasn't a full season, so I get all that. But again, they had some success, but you can't act like Lou has done an outstanding job because he hasn't. And Mike, you're right here. There's nothing to take away from Lou Lamoriello's past. He's a Hall of Fame general manager, no doubt about that. He's one of the best executives in league history, no doubt about that. No one's taking that away from him. But again, it's what have you done for me lately? And lately, specifically being last season, they didn't make the playoffs, and the reason why they didn't make the playoffs was because of their goal scoring. Look, there's no doubt that they have a very good defense, even for being where they are in the standings, missing the playoffs. And I'm sorry, guys, I don't have the numbers right in front of me. Maybe someone could pull it up, but I believe in terms of goals against last year in the league, I think they were in the top 10. Again, I don't have those exact numbers, but I think they were in the top 10. So they're despite missing the playoffs, they were still a pretty good defensive team. And they have one of the best goaltending duos in the league. If you look at a lot of the fantasy rankings for this year, and just some of the rankings you see on social media for goaltending duos going into next season, the Islanders are ranked either 1, 2, or 3, and that's mainly because they have a backup of Semyon Varlamov's caliber on top of having an elite goalie in Ilya Sorokin. So their goalies are good, their defense is good, but they struggle to score goals. Since Lou Lamoriello has been here, starting the 18-19 season, in all those years, they were roughly 21, 22, 23. I think the highest was maybe 19. But they've struggled to score goals. And again, Lou Lamoriello has failed to really turn over their group of forwards. People point out, well, they traded for J.G. Pageau and traded for Kyle Palmieri, and I get all that, and that's the weird thing. Lou Lamoriello has shown that he can make a move during the season to help his team if they're a playoff team, because he's done it. He's traded for Andy Green, Pageau, Palmieri, Zajac. So it's just baffling to me that in the off season he's the complete opposite of that, and he does nothing. I really don't get that. In the off season, he's a totally different general manager, and it seems like he's incompetent of pulling off anything, because he hasn't. And this isn't an opinion. This is fact. Again, if you look from when he took over the Islanders in 18-19, that summer, and again, that was the year that Tavares walked out, which really wasn't on him. I mean, it was too late. That was more so on the Snow regime. Lou came in too late to really save that mess. But when he took over that summer, since then, the free agents that he has signed has been Robin Lehner, Leo Komarov, Semyon Varlamov, Derek Brassard, Zach Parise, Zdeno Chara, and obviously I'm not going to count like minor leaguers, but that's pretty much it for the UFA signings specifically. So he hasn't really dipped into the UFA market at all since he's been here. I mean, yeah, we all know the names that he's tried for, but in terms of actually signing one, he has not. And then even off-season trades, aside from cap dump moves like Ladd, Leddy, Devon Taves, he hasn't really made any specific hockey trades. You could point to Alexander Romanov this year trading for him, but even that during the summertime, the offseason, he hasn't made any trades either to improve the team. During the end of the last season, he kept talking about how the way to improve this team was going to be through hockey trades. Today in his press conference, he said, in reference to that comment, how he mentioned hockey trades, he said that it wouldn't have made sense for him because in all those moves, he felt it would have made the team worse in other areas. So you could take that for what it's worth. But he talked a big game about making hockey trades this offseason, and he didn't. So again, a lot of frustration with Lou Lamoriello. But despite that, this is and I mentioned when I did the show last week about Kadri signing. This is a big year for him. He fired Trotz. He basically doubled down on his belief in the team by not making any additions outside of Romanov. So if the Islanders fail to make the playoffs, it's on him now, and I think he will. I mean, there's rumors that this is his last year of his contract. So if that's the case, maybe he just steps aside. But if not, the owners may opt to fire him because now it's all on him. After firing the coach and not doing anything to change the team from last season at the forward group, it is all on him. So again, a lot of ill will towards Lou right now from Islander fans, which is weird because when I remember the day he was hired and he fired Gar Snow, everyone was so pumped, and at that particular moment, you wouldn't envision just 4 years later or 5 years, you'd be sitting to yourself saying, is it time for Lou to go? So things change there, and who knows, maybe if the Islanders have a lot of success this year and they make the playoffs, myself and anybody that's been criticizing him and his lack of moves will have to eat some crow. But that's what he's banking on. He thinks that this team, as constructed right now, could still get the job done. And you know what? Again, I play devil's advocate. I see two sides. So if you want to talk about from that angle, let's look at it. So last year you had the 13-game road trip, which is tough for any team. That makes things tough. You come home. Right before you come home, you start to get COVID cases. And then the day of your home opener, your captain goes out with COVID, Pellick, and then it spreads like wildfire. And then the league doesn't shut down for some really, really odd reason. They're playing all these home games with basically fielding an AHL team. I know that first meeting at UBS Arena when they played the Rangers, they had like 5 call-ups from Bridgeport in the lineup. And I remember saying to myself and the media too, like, how is this game not canceled? It's postponed right now. This is ridiculous. So they were ravaged by COVID, and they had Pollock got hurt, their top pairing right defenseman, and there's no continuity from there. It's hard to get in a groove, and I think everything just spiraled downhill. So, again, maybe last year was just a one-off, and all the circumstances that next year they'll get back to where they were. So yeah, is it possible? I guess, and it's possible just because of how good their goaltending is, and because they do have a solid defense. So that is a plus. It is possible. So if Lane Lambert loosens up the system a little bit, which Lou today in his presser did say that he expects Lambert to play a little bit more of an offensive style while still keeping the defense first mentality. So if that happens, and Barzell has some more freedom, and Nelson put up a little bit more points, and Oliver Wahlstrom takes the next step, and maybe Anthony Beauvillier plays playoff style hockey during the regular season. So it's possible, and especially if they're in a playoff spot or hanging around the deadline. Again, Lou has showed he's not afraid to make a move at the deadline to improve his team. So yeah, it's possible, and there's not saying that all hope is lost, but with the same forward group, it's just going to be tough. They could have definitely used an injection of scoring into the lineup. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But overall, again, I mean, nothing that he said in his presser surprised me. I kind of expected a lot of that type of fluff type of answers. And of course, no one challenges him with a tough question. So I wasn't expecting him to really have to, dig deep there. And THC, you're right. Right here, Lou is a guy that has never been an excuse guy, but he's kind of banking and kind of playing that in there with some of his responses. But again, it does have some validity to it. So we'll see. But, this is a guy that if it goes the wrong way, it's going to bite him in the ass and only him. So it's going to be his own undoing if things turn out to go sideways. And Mike, Lou is old. I mentioned he's 80. I'm not sure when he turns 81, but he's definitely on the older side. Not sure how much longer he has to, he wants to keep doing this. And also too, and it's nothing against him, but naturally as you get older, you start to slow down and, things start to pass you by a little bit. And I think maybe that's happening to Lou. Like, do we see it this season? And well, it started last offseason, but it's secrecy, not announcing these contracts until, last year is September 1st. This year, whatever today's date is, August 22nd. And then, everything that goes into that, the secrecy and, nixing deals if the media leaks it and all this stuff. I just think his shtick's getting a little old. And also too, I know it may sound silly, but his no facial hair rule, it's 2022. People like to express themselves in, many different ways, and, not allowing to have facial hair or long hair coming out of your helmet. I mean, it's just a little over the top. It may have worked, 25 years ago, but I don't know if I agree with it now. Some more of your comments here. Many people want to play in New York. This too. Trotz was basically he did the best what he had to work with. He played a real defensive system from the start because he knew they lacked offensive, high-end offensive skill. So he had to have Barzal transform his game, and and sometimes it's good. It didn't hurt Matt Barzal to maybe become a little better defensively, but at the same time, you don't want to neuter him, if you will. Matt Barzal is an electrifying offensive type of player. So maybe by having more freedom, Barzal can get back to that 85-point production year he had in his rookie year. So we'll see if the new system opens up some guys to score more, which for the Islanders I think is going to be crucial for them to have a lot of success. New coach, new system. Yep. Again, Lane Lambert's going to be a breath of fresh air into the room and sort of a new voice. I mean, he was behind the bench, but now he's going to have more, input. Again, new year. So I'm not ready to write him off. I just think that Lou really could have done the team a big service by adding. And he tried. He tried to get Kadri, but he waited too long, and he was stubborn. He wouldn't move the first-round pick to move Josh Bailey. Which is another topic. A lot of Islander fans are happy that he did not move a first to get rid of Josh Bailey. Some wanted to see it anyway. Again, I see both sides. There's no secret. I wanted Nazem Kadri, but there is merit to. Do you really want to move a first-round pick to get rid of Bailey just so you could fit in a guy who's going to be 32 in October? And be on the team until he's 39, at the end of a 7-year contract. So, I see both sides, but at the end of the day, I probably would have moved the first and had made it work with Kadri just because he does make the team better in the short term. And, while teams need to keep an eye out on the future and the long term, if you're trying to win a Stanley Cup, that's got to be your focus. And, you do whatever it takes to win the cup. And then you go from there. I mean, look how many, when the Blackhawks were winning those cups, 2010, 2013, they made a lot of moves after that, a big cap crunch. They moved guys out, and that's what cap teams do. You find a way to make it work. So again, I know adding Kadri and that contract would have been tough, but you do what you have to do to win now. And I think that, trading a first for really the fourth year in a row, that would be a little tough. But again, if you're trying to win a cup, you got to do what you got to do. And, I wouldn't I wouldn't have criticized Lou and went off of him if he did that deal, but I do get why he didn't want to move it first either. So, see, again, I respect the fit. I respect the opinion. I'm frustrated with Lou too. Thing is, he's not going to be fired right now. If anything, maybe at the end of the year if things go sideways. But again, now it's totally on him. There's no more excuses here. And yeah, that does prove it. And the fact that the Flames had to move it first to move Sean Monahan just confirms it. Sean Monahan, while a higher cap hit than Bailey, 6.3, younger, is more talented. But it just goes to show that, to get the deal done, you needed to move it first. And I'll admit I was wrong, because to move Andrew Ladd and Josh Bailey's, at this point, 5 times the player Andrew Ladd is. Ladd only cost 2 seconds and a conditional third to move. So I thought that being that was the case, there was no way that you would have to move first to move Josh Bailey. But I suppose in this climate, when there are so many teams that are looking to move salary and only few teams actually have the space, they're able to hold those teams over a barrel. So I guess the teams like the Islanders and the Flames, kind of had no choice. If they wanted to move a contract like that, they were going to have to pay the price. And I said last week, kudos on Brad Treliving to pay the price to get the player he wanted. Lou was not willing to do that. And Frankie, Lou has failed some good contracts and too many horrible contracts. Bottom line, has not improved the team, and his hockey trade never happened. He's an 82, give a proactive young guy a chance. Yeah, and that's true. He like you mentioned and I mentioned, he has some good contracts there. Pulock, Dobson. And even when he re-signed Brock Nelson, I think that was good, because Nelson's a very valuable player. Horrible contracts. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to call Lee, but again, what were you going to do? You just lost your captain. Could you afford to, let Lee walk if he would have losing your captain 2 years in a row? So the $7 million AAV in term, it is what it is. They had to do to keep him. And then the contracts, to Cizikas and whatnot, fourth line guys, Matt Martin. So yeah, I get it. And his hockey trade never happened. Yeah, that's all spot on. But again, he's going to be here till at least the end of the season. And if the Islanders make the playoffs, I mean, he might even get extended. Who really knows? So we'll have to see how it shakes down. But again, it's all on him now, though. If they don't have success, his contract's either not going to be renewed or he's going to be fired. Shut up. Sorry. See, there's no chance of getting trades for top scorer before the season starts. No, I said it before. A lot of times general managers will say stuff like, "Oh, like we're not going to trade player X or do this," and then they make a move. So while it's still possible, Lou pretty much said that the roster they have now is what they're going to go in with. So yeah, maybe if something fell into their lap, I'm sure he would do it. He always says if there's a way to improve the team, he'll always explore it. But I wouldn't hold your breath, is what I'm saying. Yeah, and you're right. That's another thing. The Flyers basically lost out on Johnny Gaudreau because they weren't willing to move JVR. Gaudreau to the Flyers would have been a slam dunk if they were willing to move out the salary, but they weren't. Allegri said again, what about a PTO? Yeah, again, possible. They definitely could invite someone on a PTO to camp. I still think Calvin DeHaan will probably be able to land a guaranteed contract somewhere, but maybe the closer to September it gets and he's still unsigned, maybe he would take a PTO because right now either Robin Salo or Sebastian Aho will be the sixth defender playing on the third pair with Scott Mayfield on the left side, so that's certainly a possibility. If Long Island native Sonny Milano still out there, again, if no one picks him up, could you invite him on a PTO and create some competition in camp and push some of these guys, maybe. So again, never say never, but I would be surprised if there was a trade or PTO, but we'll see. Wicked. Much I want Bailey off the team. Yeah. Again, the time to move Varlamov was this offseason, where a lot of teams needed goalies, or last trade deadline. That didn't happen. The door kind of reopened with the Robin Leonard injury news, but it seems like Vegas may go with Thompson and Brissett. So Varlamov's definitely not moving at this point. But I agree. I thought Varley could have been moved last year. And yeah, as for Bailey, I think every Islander fan is kind of wishing Bailey would get moved. But I think at this point, I'm starting to believe that he's going to finish out his contract here with the Islanders. Again, unless things go sideways and they're not a playoff team this year, maybe a team takes him at the deadline, being that he'll only have 1 year left. And teams at the deadline are basically desperate to bolster their team in any way to help them at a cup run. So, maybe if they suck, Bailey goes the deadline. Other than that, I'm kind of thinking Bailey's here, like I said, until the end of the contract. But again, who knows? It's hard to predict at this point. Ratu, Lou mentioned him in his presser today, but he said that Ratu is ticketed for Bridgeport. Although if he works hard in camp and impresses, that maybe he gets a look. But it seems like he's going to start the year in Bridgeport, which honestly isn't the worst thing. He's never played the North American pro game before. So to have him, actually it's a lie. He played at Bridgeport in the playoffs last year, but that's just cup of tea. Let him play a full season down there, and get really acclimated. Play him on a line with Dufour and see what they could do. At this point, I don't see any reason to rush Ratu, especially because he's a center. And I don't think the Islanders really want to start him on the wing to start his career. So I think he'll start in Bridgeport, and then we'll see what happens. All right, what a joke Lou is. Again, a lot of fans share the sentiment. I'm more in the middle. I am very frustrated with him, but I'm not going to let myself get too worked up about it. It is what it is. I do absolutely think he should have made a move, but again, he feels that the team that he had this last year can have and find success again like the prior years. As an obligation. Yeah, you know what? Again, I was really surprised that deal fell through. I remember sitting here with Phil and Marc on draft day and watching on TV and reading the tweets. And, Elliot Friedman was talking about Islanders Canucks working on something. And anytime Elliot Friedman says something like that, usually, in short order, it comes to fruition and it's done. So, but the rumor is that, Lou didn't have permission to speak with Miller about an extension, so he walked away. But again, Lou is a very stubborn man. So unless Vancouver and Patrick Alvin, the general manager, has had a change of heart and allows Lou to talk to Miller about an extension, I can't see those talks being revisited. I would hope they would, but again, I don't see that changing. And again, yeah, I do see that. It would be cool to see Bailey reach that milestone with us. But at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for your franchise. And Bailey at $5 million. Let's face it, he's not a goal scorer. He's a good playmaker, but he's the most logical spot on the roster to be upgraded. And if you could have moved him to free up salary cap space to allow you to do other things, then that would have been good. I mean, look at it this way. If Lou actually would have done the right thing and moved salary at the trade deadline, they actually would have had the cap space available to actually present Johnny Gaudreau with a contract rather than just speaking to him and say, all right, well, let me get back to you and see if we can move the salary needed. If he had moved salary out last trade deadline, like most general managers do, they sell. I think this offseason would have gone a lot different. I may have to go kill my dogs here for a second. Sorry, I'm back. But yeah, I think if he would have handled his business differently at the trade deadline, I think we would have had more room to play with, and actually wouldn't have had to wait to move out contracts to sign guys. So it's just frustrating. Timo Meier, again, I mean, I know he could be an RFA next year, but I think right now the Sharks have no reason or incentive to move him now, so I don't see that as a viable option right now. Yeah, it's just annoying. They sit there. It's the little one. The little one is some stupid dog that I inherited when I met my wife back in 2013. But she barks at anything and then gets the big one going, and she's just a nuisance. But yeah. Listen, at this point, I think Islander fans can only just sit there and hope that things go our way here. If they get the goal scoring, they have the defense and the goaltending to go far. So I can't take it. Hold on. I think I solved that problem. Um, but yeah, I think what's best right now is that most Islander fans don't sit there and drive themselves crazy about it, and really kind of just let the season play out and see how it goes. If by November they're struggling, and I think we can really maybe make some billboards like they did with Gar Snow, with the Snow Must Go billboards, which was actually really funny. A bunch of Islander fans pulled some money together and made a billboard. I think it was somewhere in Brooklyn by the Barclays where they used to play. Your dogs are pissed off at Lou too. Yeah, no. Again, a lot of the vitriol that he's receiving is well warranted. This is a guy that at the end of the year he was preaching, hockey trades, and we're going to evaluate the roster and and see what needs to be done, and then to go the whole off season with all this silence and have all this speculation at the end of the day. And you literally have the same forward group. I mean, it's inconceivable to me. And you know what? If at the beginning of the offseason, which I really, when the Stanley Cup's awarded or the draft, if someone were to say to me, the Islanders are going to have the same exact forward group as last season, I probably would have bet anything against that, because that's to me, that's how illogical that would have been. And you know what? It actually it actually played out that way. So if that's something I'd bet on, I would have lost. But that's just how far fetched I didn't really see this coming. I thought for sure he would have made a move, and I guess if you want to say that he tried to, if he would have moved salary, Nazem Kadri would have been an Islander, and he would have done something. But the fact that there was no plan A, B, or C, or hell, maybe Kadri was plan C and JT Miller was A and Gaudreau was B. I don't know, but you would think you have a contingency plan all the way down to the line where even if Kadri didn't work, there's something else I could do maybe on a smaller scale. And the fact that he still didn't do that is just I don't know. Again, it's mind-boggling to me. State of Survival, how you doing? I mean, well, right now it's a battle between Aho and Robin Salo for that sixth spot. Me personally, at this point, I think Salo has more upside. I mean, Aho's been in the organization for a while now, which truthfully, I thought last year he would have been gone, but they re-signed him and they kept him, which was surprising because they haven't really used him, and he's kind of been like toiling in Bridgeport. So I was surprised, but Aho can skate actually really well, and he can move the puck, but he's undersized, gets pushed around too often, and I've seen he makes far too many mistakes with the puck in his own end. I would much rather see a more highly touted Robin Salo with that 6th spot. He's bigger. I think he's already better. And I just think Salo should get that spot, but they're gonna battle it out for the 6th spot for sure. And then don't forget Samuel Bolduc. He actually impressed the team. It was not. I guess it was the year of COVID. That year, I remember Samuel Bolduc impressed Trotz so much that he was actually the last defenseman cut in camp. And then since then, he's had a lot of injury issues, and COVID and everything happened. And I want to say his development maybe stalled a little bit, but he was healthy and back on the ice last year for Bridgeport. So I would say that Bolduc is also a possibility too, almost like a dark horse. I wouldn't count him out for that 6th spot. How's it doing, Ronald? Nice to see you. See what else. So what's the speculation on Kadri? Yeah, so that's pretty much what. So my source told me that I text directly. That's definitely what happened. He said that Kadri basically had the agreement that everyone thought he had with the Islanders, like a verbal agreement that only paperwork needed to be signed, and he was waiting for Lou to clear out the cap space. And so that with Kadri signed with the Flames it was Thursday, or was the day we met Romanov and Sorokin. So I think that was a Thursday. That I guess that weekend prior, that Kadri's agent wanted Lou to firm up his business by then. Lou said, wait, keep waiting. And then it got to the point where Kadri said, all right, well, F off. I'm not doing it anymore. I have this offer from Calgary. Calgary was able to move Monahan, and he signed. And then that was pretty much confirmed by the Canucks. The Canucks beat writer I saw, it was a tweet. He had a radio spot, and he said that he talked to Kadri's agent, and Lou just couldn't move the money. So again, it goes back to Lou did not want to move the 1st round pick to get rid of Josh Bailey, or Anthony Beauvillier. I don't know which one, but whatever the case, whichever one, he didn't want to move it first to move him. And Beauvillier, I get. I'm not going to move. Beauvillier should have value on his own. I wouldn't have been strong armed to moving it first to get rid of Beauvillier. That would have irked me a little bit. But yeah, but essentially that's why Kadri's not an Islander, because Lou wouldn't move the money. Let's see. Did you? No, I put the little one in my daughter's room for now, so this way she can't bark at the tumbleweed going by the front door and sets off my bigger one. So that's why it's quiet now. So no, I didn't. Lou did not off them. And he got teacher. Yeah, again, it was, but he did have some promise there, and I think that you can't really count him out. Again, I would put him behind Aho and Salo at this point, but it is possible. Lou is no longer good for his word. I mean, yeah, I get it. But I mean, the fact that Kadri waited as long as he did shows that, yeah, he did do what Lou said. He waited for a while. I mean, no one knows how long they had this verbal deal in place, if it was from a couple days after free agency. But I would say at the very least, you're probably talking a good 3 weeks where, Kadri was essentially in the bag and he was keeping Lou for his word. But again, Lou does things on his own terms, and he wasn't gonna be rushed into anything. And unfortunately, sometimes when you play with fire, you get burnt, and that's what happened. He waited too long, and I get it. I get it for Kadri's point of view. Most of the time, when a high profile free agency signs, they want the big hoopla about it. They want it announced right away and all this. The fact that he agreed to sit this one out as long as he did, credit to him. So, Lou just didn't act fast enough. That's what it comes down to. Ronald, I was actually wondering this myself when they did the reverse retro program, 2 years ago. Pretty sure that Adidas did a big reveal on the same day. I want to say it was, it might have been September 1st. I think they released them all on the same day. So maybe that's going to happen again. I don't know, but you would think it's going to be soon. I would imagine before training camp and stuff starts, they should all be released. But I I don't know. So we'll see. I haven't seen anything about it, but I am very interested. And speaking of the Islanders, I hear it is going to be the Fishermen, but it's going to be the teal color is going to be excluded. It's just going to be blue and orange. So we'll see. It's yeah, again, he always uses the phrase when you have time, you use it. And I think he maybe had a little too much time and he let it go by the wayside there. But again, I would have liked Kadri. I would have moved the first to get rid of Bailey. I don't know if I would have moved the first to get rid of Beauvillier, but he would have helped the team, that's for sure. And again, I do agree with this. I would have been very happy with Burakovsky. But again, you're talking that first day of free agency. Lou probably had all his eggs in the Gaudreau basket and trying to move salary, and then before you know it, everyone's gone. And again, that's why it's you should know early when you're not going to be able to do something, and if you're out of something, so you could pivot quickly to something else. And Burakovsky was probably gone by, I don't remember now, but probably like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe even earlier. So Gaudreau didn't sign with Columbus until 7 or so. So, but he would have helped the Islanders a lot. Burakovsky, I like him a lot as a player. He's got speed, he could score. He would have been a good fit. Yeah, the Lou jokes being old at this point, you just got to laugh because he hasn't proved otherwise. So, again, I think he's sitting there saying on his presser he's excited, and I think that's the wrong word. Well, at least for fans, because I can tell you right now, like if you go over the Islanders Twitter, every time they tweet something, they just get torched in the comments. So, again, I think people, because it's a new season, everyone's excited. I think UBS will be full for pretty much for however long they stay competitive and they stay good. But you're talking, if they start out slow and don't perform, it's not going to be pretty, and it's really just going to be one man's fault, and that man is Lou Lamoriello. If they don't have success, and empty seats, it seems like Ledecky and Malkin don't care right now, but the minute seats become empty, believe me, that's when they'll start caring. So again, this is all on Lou now. If the results aren't there, he's out. How's it going, Empire State? Nice to have you. Just commiserating here about Big Lou not doing anything. Yeah, and you know what, Doug? I'm one of the Islander forums I post on. One of the posters, like said, he was talking to his rep, and he was saying how he was unsure if he should renew, and the ticket rep said, oh well, we have Nazem Kadri or something along those lines. But yeah, I think their job is probably really hard right now, because I would say the majority of people, or at least unless you're a full throttled homer, most people are going to have reservations about why they should spend money on season tickets when the team's not really doing much. So yeah, I would say they have a hard sell right now trying to have people renew their tickets. Yeah. How could he justify it? I guess he could justify it by saying, I wasn't gonna sacrifice the future by trading a first just to get rid of Josh Bailey. So I think that's how he justifies it. Whether right or wrong, I think that would be his justification. And if they start 5-13-1, well, usually in some cases a start like that would, the coach would go, but none of this would be Lambert's fault if they start like that, so it wouldn't be him. So yeah, I guess it's possible, but I mean, how often do you see general managers, fired early in the season or what? Usually that's like an end of the year thing. But anything is possible. But I would say even a start like that, Lou probably would keep his job. I mean, and again, I could be wrong, but I think he would still have his job even if they started out that way. And yeah, Mike, I had season tickets at UBS last year. The only negative thing I would say about it is the parking. I didn't like the parking. Trains for me were an issue. I never took the train. I just always figured it would be easier to drive. And plus, with the season tickets, I had the parking pass, so parking was already paid for and incorporated in the price. But I did not like the parking. Other than that, that's really it, though. The arena is beautiful. They did a really good job. No issues there. But yeah, they could have done better. And I think it might be better this year. I remember going last year, there was like a closed off area to the left with the big parking garage. So and I would imagine I was told that should be ready to go by this year. So if that's the case, maybe that makes things a little easier. I mean, yeah, the bleak years of only having 7,000 people. Again, I don't think it will be that bad because those teams were dreadful. You got to remember that the team now has really good pieces. I mean, you're talking Ilya Sorokin, you're talking Adam Pelech and Ryan Pulock and Noah Dobson and Matt Barzell and Oliver Wallstrom's young and all these pieces. So Brock Nelson. I won't be that bad unless like they suck this year and they did a total sell off, which even still I don't think would happen. I don't think those days would return. Those are much darker days. But you are right. If they do struggle, the building won't be full. That there's no debate about. Yeah, the Coliseum tailgates were the best. I missed that too. UBS in that regard has a different feel as well. There's not that like family small town team type of feel at UBS. It's a little more sterile in terms of the parking lot and all that. But a good call. The Coliseum parking lot was the best, absolute best. I remember in playoff games, especially the one against Tampa Bay, where the game where, as we know, at the save, where Pulock made the save with his glove on the goal line. People were honking the horn outside and staying and sitting on top of their cars and drinking. That was a blast. That was an absolute blast. I was there that night, and man, I would go back to that night. That atmosphere was absolutely great. Empire offense has improved. And again, I appreciate this optimistic feeling, and believe it or not, I actually tend to be a more optimistic Islander fan. But yeah, see, but why? It's no guarantee that Bo is going to play better. There's no guarantee that Bellows. I mean, because frankly, Bellows at this point, I'm not really expecting him to be much of a factor at this point. I mean, as it is, again, who is he playing over? I'm not really expecting him to have any huge impact on the team. I'll give you Barzell. I think Lane Lambert's more offensive system could provide Barzell to have a spike in numbers. But again, these are ifs. They're going to have more offense if they want to make the playoffs. But there's just no guarantee that's going to happen. If it does, then yeah, combined with Sorokin being elite and our defense, we could definitely make the playoffs. But again, Nelson's gonna have to play at the level he did last year. Barzell's going to have to score more. I mean, our leading goal scorer last year had 59 points. Even the Arizona Coyotes had a guy that scored more than that, Clayton Keller. So again, bottom line, no matter what you slice it, who has to score more, whether it's Lee, whether it's Bailey, whether it's Pajot, we need more goals on the board to make the playoffs. So we'll have to see if that happens. If it doesn't, then I don't know. It's going to be tough. Wicked, again, this is a good question. I hope's not the case, but as you know, his son Chris Lamoriello is the general manager of now they're the Islanders, the Bridgeport Islanders. I hope to God if Lou goes on his own terms, he doesn't just hire Chris. That's why if Lou does leave, I hope he gets fired, because I do have a feeling if he stepped aside, he would just promote his son, and I think that would probably be more of the same. Because I would imagine he probably learned from his dad and probably have to implement some of the same ridiculous, methods, but maybe I'm just assuming there. But either way, I don't want Chris Lamoriello. I want an established executive, maybe a younger. I mean, I don't really know actually, you know what? Kevin Weeks was interviewing for some general manager positions. I would consider him. finds like, Pat Verbeek took over as general manager after being assistant for a while. So a guy like that, there's a lot of them out there, but that's the type of guy that I would want if Lou left. So, yep, Coliseum was great for tailgates. And again, yes, we do have good defense. Pelech Polak, one of the best shutdown pairs in the league. Noah Dobson took huge strides. Romanov's going to help the team a lot. Scott Mayfield right now is a third pair of defensemen on the right side. There are a lot of teams where Scott Mayfield could probably be the number 4 and be the second pairing defenseman on the right side. So yeah, we do have a good defense and we do have great goaltending. But again, it's none of this is fabricated. If you look at the goals for the last 4 or 5 years, we've struggled to score goals. They needed to improve their goal scoring. They didn't do that. So we'll have to see if that happens. And it's not impossible. It could happen. I just think that it would have been more beneficial if Lou added a forward. Metro's good. Again, you got to look at this. The Rangers and Hurricanes should be locks for playoffs. And I say should be because after the Islanders missing the playoffs last year, when everyone and their mother had predicted them to either go to the conference finals or even win the Stanley Cup, all I'm going to say is anything can happen. So that's why I say they should make the playoffs. But with that being said, after the Rangers and the Hurricanes, you're talking the Penguins. I mean, we talked about them. They're old. I'm not really sold on them. The Capitals, I mean, kind of I mean, Darcy Kemper and Charlie Lindgren are the goalies now. The offseason, Nicholas Backstrom's going to be out for a while. Who'd they get? They got Connor Brown. So I'm not really in love with them either. I think one of them could finally fall off. I know we've been saying that for a while. And then aside from that, I mean, the Flyers are going to probably be abysmal. The Devils are improved, but I still think they're going to be, more so on the bad side. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a feasible chance the Islanders could finish third in the Metro. They could finish second. They could finish first. I mean, honestly, it's really so hard to predict. But more realistically, I would expect them to finish anywhere between third and fifth, personally. So we'll see. Nose picker. Yeah, and again, Scott Mayfield is good. Again, he's the guy that could play in the top 4 somewhere else. Here he's relegated to the third pair now, really, with the emergence of Noah Dobson on the right side. But again, their defense isn't the issue here. It's their offense, and they're gonna really have to find a way to dig deep and score more. If they do, then yeah, like I said a bunch of times, they could certainly make the playoffs. But what I think should have happened realistically, though, and again, I don't know the exact details with the JT Miller thing, but if JT Miller, if Lou walked away because he couldn't talk contract extension with him before the deal, I mean, why not? I mean, I hate to say it, why not do the deal anyway? Because I get it. You don't want to, trade for a guy who could leave in free agency and they do it anyway. But I mean, it's pretty commonplace these days. I mean, it happens all the time. So, I mean, if you can add a guy that added 99 points in the offseason, you have all year to talk to the guy and convince him to stay. So, I don't know. I think personally, I mean, without knowing what the return would have been, because we clearly don't. I think if I was Lou, I think I would have maybe pulled the trigger on that JT Miller deal anyway, and then just like I said, roll the dice and see if you could talk extension to him after you got him, because JT Miller would have made the Islanders a much better team offensively, and then you feel more comfortable going into the offseason with JT Miller on the roster. And again, like I said, I don't know what the return would have been. I don't know what would have been going the other way. You have to assume maybe the first round pick that was used to get Romanov would be going the other way. But I'm not sure. I just think JT Miller would have moved the needle for the Islanders there on the left side, playing next to Barzell. So And again, I don't see it being revisited because again, Lou's a stubborn guy, and nothing's really going to change in the sense of if the Canucks don't grant that permission. I don't think Lou's is gonna circle back on it. Yeah, sure. If Vancouver called him and tried to reinitiate talks, I'm sure he would listen. But I would bet anything on Lou's not picking up the phone and kind of calling Vancouver again, saying, "Can we talk about this?" He doesn't seem like that type of guy. Once he walks away from something, it seems like it's done. The only example where I could prove myself wrong there is in a little bit of a different circumstance, but the year where he got Pajot at the trade deadline, as I'm sure you all know, he was almost on the verge of acquiring Parise from the Wild in exchange for Andrew Ladd, and there would have been some other pieces, but the clock ran out and they couldn't figure out the money part before 3 p.m. And obviously Parise goes on to gets bought out, and then he gets the player anyway. But again, that's a little different. It's just a case of Lou circling back to a player he tried to get prior. But again, I don't see him circling back on JT Miller, even though I think JT Miller would be the right choice for the Islanders right now, especially because Vancouver doesn't have really much cap space at all. And next year, Bo Horvat and JT Miller are both going to be unrestricted free agents. And I can tell you right now that there's no way that they're going to probably be able to keep both of them. So one of them is going to go. And it seems like right now, if they had to pick, it's going to be JT Miller that goes and Bo Horvat will be retained, but we'll have to see. And yeah, you're right there. Like, I'm not woe was me. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm still going to be pumped up for the first game of the year. And, I'm excited to get going again and watching them on TV and, even going to some games. It's just disappointing though, because if they do struggle to score goals, and they're kind of like a middling team and, fighting and scratching to kind of like stay in it, it's going to be deflating knowing like, well, if Lou would have made the move, then, maybe this wouldn't be the case when it was so obvious what they needed. So we'll have to see, who knows? Maybe they come out guns a-blazing. I'm sure they're all pissed off. I know today Noah Dobson spoke to the media and in regards to next season, like he said, the group is really angry and they're trying to remember the exact word. It wasn't embarrassed, but it was something along those lines. Like they were embarrassed with how it went last year. And they're really, really fired up to get back at it. So, and I'm sure that's true, for them coming off back-to-back conference final trips and then opening up a new building and missing the playoffs. I'm sure the feeling they all have in their stomach there at the end of the year is probably something I would hope that's burning in them to come back and make sure they're a really good team again. But, other teams and players are going to be jacked up to go too. So that doesn't really matter too much. But I do think, but to your point, yeah, there is reason to be optimistic. It's just if things go off the rails early, it's going to get ugly with the fans, and in the ire they're going to point at Lou because again, everyone and their mother knew they should have added a scorer this offseason. Wicked for Lou be calling up Milano's agent again. Milano is still out there. I mean, he could be a guy that just lands on a PTO, which let's face it, training camp opens up in 1 month. I think Islanders' first day of camp on the ice is the 21st, so pretty much 1 month. These guys are going to probably start accepting PTOs in the next couple of weeks. Maybe he gets a contract, but yeah, I'm all for Milano. About 36 points or something like that in 63 games. He had some chemistry with Zegras, and he he's an offensively gifted guy. It wouldn't be able to hurt to get him, especially if he's cheap. The only thing is, right now the Islanders have like 3.45 million in cap space. But that's not counting Robin Salo, whose contracts right now is not equated in there. So when Salo is on the roster, that's going to bring their cap space down to like 2.5. So still more than enough to fit Sonny Milano if they wanted. So yeah, I would be open to it. And as far as Puljujärvi goes, the Oilers are over the cap. They're going to have to move somebody, so it is possible he goes. But again, I guess I would take him. I think being that would require a trade, I would much rather just get Milano at that point. And yeah, I saw that. Yeah, he basically said that Chara and Green are done. They're not coming back. There's no talks there. Yeah, David. No, we're not. We're not getting a scoring winger for a little over $3 million. It would have to be. It would have to be a trade where salary goes back the other way. Clearly, there's no free agent left on the market that's really going to move the needle. We just talked about Sonny Milano maybe on a PTO. Phil Kessel would come cheap, probably less than I would say $2 million. But yeah, if at this point, I said earlier, based on Lou's comments, I think the roster now is what you're going to see when the season starts. But if the small chance he did still make a move, it would have to be a trade for a JT Miller where you have salary going back the other way, so it still works out. But again, I'm not going to hold my breath. I don't think he's going to make a move. I think the roster you see now is what you're going to get. And if by chance they're in a playoff spot come the trade deadline, I think at that point then he'll make a move to add somebody because he's done it before. But as of now, no. But maybe I'll be proved wrong. Yeah, see, I said roughly around 30 points in 60-something games. Yeah, that to me, that's good enough to take a flyer on. 14 goals. Granted, he was playing with Zegras. He's got skill. He's got speed. Why not? I would take him. Put some pressure on Wallstrom, Bellows, Beauvillier. Yeah, I mean, if he's willing to come, and he was an Islander fan and grew up in Massapequa, I'm sure he would be. I'm sure it's more of a matter if the Islanders are interested in him, which I have no way of knowing. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything specifically. Yeah, Chris, good call. Because even right now with Bellows, he's essentially a 13th forward. Because Parise, you would think, is ticketed for that third line with Pajot and Palmieri, wherever the lines shake out. So yeah, if Milano came in, either Lou would have to move somebody or someone would get waived. I don't know, but yeah, as of right now, like I said, even with Bellows, he doesn't have a guaranteed spot. So I think he would have to do some roster juggling if he brought in Sonny Milano. Yeah. I would be shocked if Big Lou waived Bailey. I don't see it. And he would definitely clear with his salary. He would certainly clear waivers and go to Bridgeport. But Lou respects his veterans, and I do not think he would do that to Josh Bailey. Marc, 14 goals could equal wins. Yeah. Again, I'm open to Sonny Milano. I just don't know if Lou is going to add anybody to the roster. Again, I know despite what he said, doesn't matter. He could, if the right trade fell on his lap, he could pull the trigger, or if he got someone on good value like Milano with a signing, he could do it. Maybe it's because I'm just so beaten down and I lost my faith in Lou. I don't see him making any more moves. And David, you're right. Guys like Evan Rodriguez and Phil Kessel and Calvin DeHaan, I think it's getting to a point where so many teams are over the cap and not much cap space. This is a terrible year to be a free agent. In normal years, all these guys would have had teams, second day of free agency, the latest. So, I think it's a very good possibility that some of those guys just have to settle for PTOs. And yeah, like I said, he is an Islander fan. So again, I would imagine he'd be open to coming to the Islanders. It's just a matter of if the interest is a two-way street. I don't know if Lou has any interest in him. So I guess we'll see. And as I just mentioned, it's actually less than that because once Robin Salo gets added to the roster, that's going to go down to 2 million or so, 2.4, something along those lines. Because right now they only have 6D on the roster, and I got to imagine they're going to carry more than 6D. So I would think Salo would definitely be on that roster either as the 6th or 7th D, in which case, like I said, we're looking like around maybe $2.4 million of cap space, which is, I mean, that's plenty of cap space for a guy like, Kessel or Milano. I don't think at this point any of them are making, $2.5, $3 million on a 1-year deal. I just don't see it. And yeah, honestly, like I mean, normal year, no, Kessel's getting a guaranteed contract and he's signing somewhere, but he may have to settle for a PTO. I mean, where's he going to go right now? I mean, could he sign with a team like Buffalo or Arizona, a bad team that has the cap space right now? And hell, even the Devils only have $73,000 of cap space right now. So even a team like them, an underperforming team, a team that may be bad, can't even really sign him right now. So again, unless he wants to go to I'm trying to think of teams that have a lot of cap space right now. There's not much. Arizona, Buffalo, Detroit. Unless he wants to go one of those teams, he's going to probably have to settle for a PTO, and the team will waive a guy or put someone on LTIR before the season starts and then sign him. So, but yeah, I think Kessel is going to get a PTO. I'll be surprised if he signs a contract, at least right off the start. Yeah, that's a fair question. I mean, at this point, he's a veteran guy. My guess is a cup. I mean, he's already made a lot of money in his career, so I don't think at this point, he's playing for solely the money, and that's honestly probably why he hasn't signed yet too. Maybe he did get an offer of a guaranteed contract early in the offseason with a team that maybe he felt wasn't going to compete, and he didn't really have to jump at it because he has the money. He didn't really feel forced to jump on it right away. So we'll see. Yeah, and I think that would be a good fit for Carolina, honestly, with Patry already out. I think Kessel could fill that need for sure, and I think he'd have some chemistry with some of the other Hurricanes, offensive minded players. And I think so I could see that fit. I'm just not. I mean, I had heard that Jake Gardiner, at this point, obviously the second buyout window is closed, so he can't be bought out anymore. So they would have to do something with Jake Gardiner if they move him. But I mean, if you saw what Calgary had to move to get rid of Sean Monahan, I would imagine the Hurricanes would have to pay a hefty price to get rid of Gardiner. So, but overall, though, I do agree with you. I think Kessel would be a good fit in Carolina. And again, Kessel to Winnipeg. I mean, Winnipeg is an interesting team to me. I know when we did our last full show, we did that episode with like Tweener, where we said, more or less than a certain amount of points for Winnipeg. Winnipeg's one of those weird teams. They're not really they're not bad, but they're also not good. I think they are that definition of a middling team. And also, Chris, keep this in mind. I mean, Winnipeg is aside from Edmonton, and I know Evander Kane re-signed there, and they got some other guys, but typically Edmonton and Winnipeg are on most players, no trade list, or they don't want to go to. So I don't know if Phil Kessel would voluntarily sign to go live in a place like Winnipeg where it's freezing all the time. So yeah, I don't see that. But your next comment, yeah, I totally picture Phil Kessel going to play in a place like Tampa with a nice climate where the guys just, living the life every day. And so, yeah, I can much easily see Kessel going to a location like that rather than Winnipeg. I'd be shocked if he went to a team like that. Wicked, yep. So Evan Rodriguez actually would be still be a pretty good get for a team. Calvin DeHaan can still play a decent amount of minutes as a formidable defenseman, even though his game has dropped significantly. PK Subban is still out there. Paul Stastny is still out there. So yeah, there's a decent amount of free agents still out there, fellas. And again, normal year, they're all snatched up by now. But again, the cap. A lot of these guys are feeling the squeeze right now. Can you imagine the guys that have kids, end of August, kids are in school, you still don't know where you're going to be living and playing, when it's so close to the school year and whatnot. It's, listen, a lot of these guys, even if they never played a game again in the NHL, like especially guys like PK Subban and Kessel, who made a shit ton of money, they'd be fine. But there are a lot of players who who still really need the money and keep playing and not have a team right now. I get why it'd be a little stressful for them. So we'll see where some of these guys land. I think again, if you say like sign before camp, yeah, I think Rodriguez, Kessel, Milano, DeHaan, Stastny, they're probably locks to get at the very least PTOs before camp. I don't know if they'll sign contracts before camp, but I think they will get PTOs. But in that case, though, like for instance, I don't see Phil Kessel getting a PTO somewhere and then being released from it and not sign. I think a lot of those guys, when they do sign their PTOs, they ultimately will sign contracts with those teams once those teams make a move of some sort. But so yeah, I do at the very least expect them to sign PTOs before camp starts, which is in another month. Chris, while I think this makes sense, I do not. One, I think it would have happened already, especially when Lou was trying to free up salary to get Kadri. But I don't know. Again, based on his comments today, I don't see the team changing much. I think what you see is what you get, and I think he believes in the goaltending. And again, you could talk about the Islanders' offense and whatnot. They have one of the best goaltending tandems in the league, if not the best one. So, I don't think Varlamov could be traded. I think Lou values that tandem a lot, and how if God forbid Sorokin goes down, he still has a goalie that's as good as Varlamov to come in and have the number one job. So, I do not think he goes. So I think this may have been the case earlier on, but I don't think Varley's here anymore just because, he's Russian like Sorokin. I think Sorokin's acclimated enough to America. And also, too, now that they have Romanov, Romanov and Sorokin are actually like really good friends. They played on CSKA Moscow together. They're honestly, and I met both of them at Iceworks, it's old practice facility, Northwell the other day. They're always with each other, and even Romanov's wife or girlfriend like posted a thing on Instagram, and they're in the pool, and you see Sorokin in the background photo bombing the photo. And even today on Romanov's presser, he said that him and Sorokin are really good friends, and he literally just hangs out his house at Sorokin's house all day with him. So, I think Sorokin would do just fine without Varlamov now that he has Romanov here. I think Varlamov being here is more so, due to on ice play, not to make Sorokin comfortable. Let's just say Varley was traded. What do you think that you could get for him? Well, again, the only team that really needs a goaltender is Vegas. Snow. Lou missed it. Freudian slip there. No, I do not want Snow back. He was terrible. Lou missed the boat there in trading Varlamov. When the beginning of the offseason, when a lot of teams needed goalies. Now Vegas is the only team that needs a goalie, so it's just one team. So not much particularly. Even though Vegas is desperate for goalie, they also know that Varlamov really wouldn't be able to go anywhere else. So I don't really expect Lou to get much for him. But let's just pretend Lou did make another move, and it was to Vegas. I can't imagine it being more than a second round pick because again, Vegas likely knows that he would prefer to free up some salary. So it works both ways with teams being desperate. As far as Bo, honestly, I don't know. You would think a guy like him who's young and is at least a 20-goal, 40-point guy would have some value, but there are people saying that he didn't, teams were asking for a first for him to free up the cap space for Kadri. So honestly, I don't know what we would get for Bo. At this point, I really don't. Like I said, I used to think he'd have a good amount of value, but I don't anymore. I don't. Like I said, teams know there are a lot of teams that are desperate to shed cap space and kind of hold you over a barrel. So I really wouldn't expect much for Bo in return, and so that's why I'd rather just keep Bo right now. I don't know if it'd be worth it to move him. Good question. I don't know what I do not know what the penalty is. I used to I used to believe it. I used to think if it was if you were over the cap by the time the season started, you got penalized in the term in the sense of like a late round pick. But I can't confirm that. I'm not honestly. I'm not really sure, but I do think that I know for sure there's certainly a penalty. I'm just not sure what it is. Um, Again, first or second, I mean, no, because I mean, where else is he going? Vegas is the only team that needs a goalie, and even them, they know that we were at least kind of desperate to move salary. So I don't think we get a first for Varley. Second, yeah, maybe, but I don't. I'd be shocked if we got a first for Varlamov. Yeah, so yeah, that's it. I still play some men's leagues games there. Usually, I prefer a lot better when it's at the rinks. It's closer to home. Hey, welcome, General. I said earlier, so I think that's where we're at. Based on loose presser, it seems like they aren't going to make any more moves. Um, but if that's the case, yeah, no, I'm not happy about it. I wanted a forward. There were so many names this offseason, like Fiala and DeBrinket and Gaudreau and Kadri and Matt Kachuk and all these guys, and to literally Pacioretty, who Pete Mackin just mentioned, got a bag of pucks. I It's inexcusable to me, so I'm not happy about it. With that said, they have really good goaltending. They have a good defense. So I think it still is possible that they make the playoffs if they score goals. But I think they plan on trying to win a lot of 2-1 games and try to play that style of hockey. But it's tough, that style of hockey wears on you. Um, and I think it's just to have that goal scorer if you really need a goal in your lineup that you can get the puck and chances are he'll get the job done for you. That's a blessing to have, and Lou failed on that, so we'll see. Yeah, and part see Varley's the only way Varley's going anywhere at the trade deadline is if the Islanders are going to miss the playoffs again. There's no way, shape, or form if the Islanders are, let's say, in the playoffs handily and are going to make it. They're not trading Semyon Varlamov. They're just not. And honestly, at that point, it would be dumb to. If you're going to trade Varlamov, you do it right now. You don't trade it. You don't trade him during the year unless it's at the deadline and you're a bad team. So yeah, it could happen if we are bad, but I don't foresee it happening otherwise. Yeah, see, I thought it was something to do with picks, but I couldn't verify it because I didn't have anything in front of me. But if that's accurate, then yeah, that's a steep price to pay. That's why teams have you'll have to go over the cap by 10% in the summer. Make sure you're cap compliant by the start of the year. Oh God! Please don't even McKinnon's fan is fantasy talk. That guy's staying in Colorado. And if for some reason Colorado let this drag out and they didn't re-sign him, they would be idiots. But he's certainly going to stay in Colorado. As for Tarasenko, honestly, I can't even believe I'm saying this, being that Lou literally signs no free agents. But Tarasenko, I do think that we actually might have a chance with if he reaches unrestricted free agency. I mean, after all, he was on the list of like 5 or 6 teams that he would have accepted a trade to last year, and to the Islanders. So that's a plus for us. As far as Patrick Kane, so I could tell you with pretty good affinity. One of my sources that I talk to and trust, and may have even been on a show. Leave you guys for that to connect the dots there. But basically told me that Patrick Kane would approve a trade to only a handful of full of teams, and rightfully so. Guys won cups. He has, he had a kid recently. He can do whatever he wants. So, but the Islanders, the Rangers, the Avalanche, I believe Dallas, and maybe a couple other teams would be the teams that Patrick Kane would accept a trade to. So, so I guess we would have a shot. We just have to make sure we're a playoff team come the trade deadline, and see what happens from there. But I'm also a realist, and let's face it, if we're a playoff team at the trade deadline, and the Rangers are a playoff team at the trade deadline, and we're both going for Patrick Kane, and we both make similar offers in terms of the quality, there is no way, shape, or form. And the Blackhawks said to Kane, all right, well, we got two equal packages on the table, Rangers or Islanders, or which place you want to go. There's literally no shot in hell he's picking the Islanders over the Rangers. Now, with that said, if the packages weren't even totally close, and the Islanders offer was much, much better, then yeah, they probably wouldn't give him the choice, and it'd be the Islanders it is. But all things considered equal, yeah, if that was an option and he was able to pick, it's no way he's picking the Isles. So while it's good to know, I guess he'd come to New York, I'm not going to get my hopes up until a trade deadline comes and it gets closer to that, but we'll see. And yeah, General, I am there with you. That, I mean, a lot of guys had egg on their face there, but that's that's the nature of the business. They hear things, they put it out there, and if it's right, they beat their chest, and if it's wrong, it's you live with it. But in this case with Kadri, though, there was just no way that so many people were saying the same thing and all so wrong. So I'm 98% certain that the reports were true, that he had an agreement of some kind that he would come play for the Islanders if they moved the cap space, and they failed to do so. And he got tired of waiting, and rightfully so. I mean, it's August, it's almost September. I mean, the guy, how long do you expect the guy to wait? So it is what it is. You guys got him, and my general manager is still doing things in unorthodox ways, which maybe if he didn't, he'd be an Islander. But again, that's Lou's ways, and that's why so many people are frustrated with him. Yeah, again, the Islanders are really deep at center. I mean, there are other teams that are top heavier, like obviously, for instance, McDavid, Draisaitl, and guys like Crosby, Malkin, and teams like that have like elite centermen, but then like their 3C and 4C aren't that good. But in terms of like 1 through 4 balanced, the Islanders are in the top half of the league there with Barzal, Nelson, Pajot, Zizekas. That's a really good group of centers. And you're right, Ratu and the wings. They're set at the center ice position for at least a while here. Chris asks if you think both players would waive a trade Varley for Carlson. Are you talking Varlamov to Vegas for William Carlson, or are you saying Varley to San Jose for Erik Karlsson? I just want to clarify that because they both spell their same way with Erik and William Karlsson. If you're referencing Erik Karlsson, the Sharks already have 3 goalies as it is, so I don't see them doing that deal. And also, Erik Karlsson's contract is terrible. The cap, there's no way that would work for the Islanders. So that's not feasible. If you're talking William Karlsson, that's a little more feasible. But again, he's a center. I know he can play the wing too. But I would think if the Knights were to trade for Varlamov, they'd much rather give up a pick than William Karlsson. But maybe I'd be wrong. We dodged a bullet. And again, I've seen fans say this. Yeah, you're absolutely right about the age and the 7 years. And but again, you have to think about, we're trying to win a cup now. Like, good teams that are always at the cap ceiling. They do what they takes to win, and they worry about the cap later. And also, too, you got to remember the cap is going to look different 2 years from now, like 3 or 4 years from now. I don't think that's fair to say we're going to be in cap hell because the cap's going to keep going up. And also, you got to remember in 4 years, I mean, the roster's going to look totally different. 4 years from now, like Clutterbuck's contracts off the books. I mean, almost pretty much everyone except for Lee and I think Pajot will all have a year left. But like Nelson and Bailey and all those guys, Palmieri, all their contracts are expired. So it would look totally different. So it's not prime to sign a guy who's going to be 32 to a 7-year deal. But he makes you a lot better in the short term. And then again, in 4 years from now, worry about that later because it's going to look much different. I wouldn't lose sleep about it. So I think if Ratu plays on the Islanders this year, it's for one of two reasons. One, there's a lot of injuries, or two, they're a bad team. They're going to miss the playoffs, and they're just going to give them some playing time. Because if they're Islanders are a playoff team, and they're relatively healthy, I don't see it because who's he playing over? Lou even said it today. He's ticketed for Bridgeport. So I would put it as maybe like a 35% chance that he plays on the Islanders at some point this year if there's a lot of injuries. So what, the one guy honestly I think that could be a surprise is William Dufour. Because he plays the wing, so there's maybe a little bit more room for him rather as opposed to center ice position. But I mean, if he comes into camp and because he has an elite level shot already. The thing is that he just needs to work on his game away from the puck and work on his skating a little bit. But the success he's had in junior this year, he's a big frame already. He's a big body. He's not a kid, so it's not like he has to fill out. He has man strength. If he comes in camp and impresses, maybe the Islanders give him a look because again they don't have many guys on the team with that elite shot that can beat goalies clean. Oliver Wahlstrom and Brock Nelson are really the only two guys that have those upper echelon shots and release. William Dufour would be a third. So if Dufour can come in and impress in camp, who knows? Maybe they gave him a look. I still think it's a long shot. I still think Dufour starts the year in Bridgeport on the top line with Ratu. But if William Dufour come in and open eyes, I mean, I think that would be great for the Islanders because, I mean, after all, right, guys, he's what the Islanders need. They need a scoring winger, and he's got all the tools to be that. So that would be the best case scenario for the Islanders. He comes into camp and shows that he's the goods, and makes it impossible for Lou to keep him off the roster. But he's the guy to keep an eye on in camp, at least for me, because again, I think he positionally he fits what we need this season. And if he somehow outplayed Oliver Wahlstrom, I mean, one, that wouldn't be a good look for Wahlstrom to be outplayed by William Dufour, being that he's kind of a pro already. But if he was outplayed by him, then maybe that opens the door for Lou and gives him some other options. But I would love to see William Dufour come in and make Lou have a really, really tough choice. Yeah, listen, Kadri is a great get for you guys. He's scrappy. He can score. He's physical. It's a good sign, despite his age and the contract. He's a good signing. And yep, that's what I said. You're worried about it now. He's a win now player for a team that's trying to win now. I wouldn't have been a fan of the contract, but I still would have been an advocate for trading the first to get rid of Bailey. But Bo, no, but Bailey, I would have done it. Chris, you're talking about Simon Holmstrom. Honestly, he was the last time the Islanders actually used their first round pick. He was really young, and he was a reach too when they drafted him. but he did show some signs last year. I believe he had a 40-point year in Bridgeport and 60-something games. So maybe he's starting to take some steps, but I think he's still, a few years away of realistically making the team, or if he even becomes an NHL player. Yeah, again, Holmstrom, as I just said, I'm not really sold on him becoming an everyday NHL player. At least he did have that sign of progression last year in Bridgeport, but I'm not expecting him to really be a player here. I also wanted Tomasino from Nashville. That I think that would have been the pick, in my opinion. But again, as I mentioned, William Dufour. William Dufour is the guy that I think has the most realistic shot uh, to make. Which, by the way, it's very little of a shot because with how many forwards they have to one-way deals on the roster. But if there was a prospect that was going to bump somebody or make the team, I think it would be William Dufour, just because he's a winger and he has that elite shot and that elite release. But again, I really, I really would be shocked because the only player he's bumping off the team is Oliver Wahlstrom or Kieffer Bellows. He's not making Lou get rid of Josh Bailey, a veteran he loves, or Zach Parise. So that's to be the player that would go. But I'm gonna do about 2 more minutes, and I'm gonna wind down here. But yeah, general. I talked about Sonny Milano before. He's definitely gonna at this point, I think, sign a PTO. Yeah, it's sure it's possible he gets a contract at this point, but with so many teams cap strapped and so close to camp already, I think he'll just land on a PTO, and then as long as he performs well in camp, that team will sign him when they move some salary. Yes, David, we do have Richard Panik. He's currently buried right now. So yeah, he's still in the mix here. But being how the Islanders loaned him out to another AHL team last year, to me that just shows that he's not in their plans. So I really don't expect him to have any impact on the team at all this year. And yeah, we're good. Again, I think do four again because he's the winger, and he's the winger that has that really good release and shot. But again, it would really, really, really be hard for him to make the team just because of how many forwards they have on one way deals. Don't get me started on him. I mean, I don't want to say I didn't like him from the start, but I mean, once I really kind of saw what he had in Bridgeport, I quickly realized watching his skating that he wasn't going to be an NHL player. And this is the first year that he's no longer a New York Islander. He didn't get qualified, and he's an unrestricted free agent. And yeah, he's gone. So, and he hasn't signed anywhere, nor do I really probably expect him to. But he's not particularly good. And yeah, you're right. A lot of teams are over the cap. I'm really interested in seeing how some of them get cap compliant. I think a lot of them will look to do the carry price where he's likely going to be put on LTIR, and that saves them from having to trade somebody or dump somebody. But ultimately, though, I do think you will see closer to camp and closer to that year actually starting when teams need to be compliant. You will see some salary dumps, but yeah, there are a lot of teams that really need to get their cap in order. Yeah. Yeah, I still don't like the Holmstrom pick. Like I said, at least he showed some progress this year. But again, I'm not sold on him ever having an impact on the Islanders. Scouting, man, it's sometimes these guys, you know, I I they fool everyone. And Del Call was a guy who had a good shot, um, and it fooled people. I don't know how they didn't see it was skating was an issue. Maybe they thought it would get better, but Same thing. How did Griffin Reinhart get selected where he was? Thankfully, though, with that one, that Snow turned that disaster around and essentially got Barzal and Beauvillier out of that trade. But I mean, yeah, that was a bad pick, very bad pick. But all right, fellas, I'm gonna sign off here. Just wanted to come on, like I said, talk to you about actual Islander transactions. Marc has talked all year about give for Lou to give us something to talk about. So I feel obligated to come on and do a quick show on a day where the Islanders actually announced transactions. So, like I said, we'll see. Again, I know anything can happen, but Lou essentially said that this is the roster that is going to hit the ice in camp, and talked about how sometimes the best transactions you make are the ones you don't. So yeah, could it be a smoke screen, or could it just make him try and send the message to other GMs that he doesn't have to do anything? It's certainly possible. However, if you're an Islander fan, I would not hold my breath, and I would be surprised if he did something else. But who knows? So we'll see. Again, we'll be back. I'll be back with Marc on Wednesday for our weekly show. And again, keep an eye on Romanov's social media page. I got to follow up with his representative, but it seems like tomorrow he should be making his first Instagram story promoting our podcast. So we're really excited about that. We're really excited to bring you guys more guests and have more content like that with Romanov coming up. So appreciate it, guys. Thank you for all the comments, and hope you all have a good night.